I was trained by Mike Mentzer, when I was, in the 1990s, the early 90s, and we were good friends and everything. And he never sat there counting seconds on exercises that I was using. It was make a concerted effort, to work the muscle, make a concerted effort to eliminate momentum. Those were the goals, and take that muscle to failure, or multiple muscles to failure if it was a nice compound movement. So that was the goal, and I always took that literally. And to this day, that's what I teach as well. And it does get back to understanding that you're not using momentum, and then also taking it to failure. And then lastly, man, you better be having fun with what you're doing.
Welcome to Corporate Warrior, the podcast that brings you the best advice on how to improve your health, optimize performance, and maximize productivity. With your host, Lawrence Neal.
This podcast is brought to you by Vital Exercise, a one-of-a-kind personal training facility in the UK, owned and run by that geezer and world-class personal trainer, Ted Harrison. For over 30 years, Ted has been very successful in helping people achieve great results. And if you've seen the blog post for his episodes on this podcast, you will see that he walks the walk. And at 57, he's muscular and lean and can be seen on Facebook doing his best Daniel Craig impression, emerging from the sea in the tiniest trunks you've ever seen. Ted and I talk all the time. Since our very first meeting, when Ted put me through an amazing workout, he's become a great friend and one of my trusted health and fitness counsel. Operating from a high-intensity training base, Ted uses an eclectic mix of training styles to optimize results for his clients. He's a hot property, and people travel from all over the UK to train with him. To book a free consultation, either at his facility in Essex in the UK, or to find out more about his virtual coaching, which includes personalized training, nutritional guidance, and support, please go to corporatewarrior.co/Ted, where you can fill in a contact form or phone Ted directly. That's corporatewarrior.co/Ted. Hey guys, I am Lawrence and welcome to another episode of Corporate Warrior, the podcast that teaches you how to optimize your health, your high intensity training, and start and grow your strength training business. My former guests include the who's who in high intensity training, people like Dr. Doug McGuff and Drew Bay, paleo pioneers like Rob Wolf, zero carb carnivores like Dr. Sean Baker, successful strength training entrepreneurs, time management experts, high intensity training bodybuilders, New York Times bestselling authors, and everything in between. My goal on this podcast is to bring on guests who are either experts in health and training and nutrition and lifestyle, and obviously I veer towards evidence-based exercise like high-intensity training. And then also the other focus is on helping you grow your business. So I interview a lot of people that excel in growing strength training and fitness businesses, and then people who are experts in different parts of businesses, like also parts of running a business, like marketing and online sales and things like that. And that leads me on to quickly mention the Corporate Warrior membership, which is where I help you start and grow your strength training business. I will personally coach you one-on-one in a private online forum where I am active on a daily basis. And this gives me the opportunity to share my insight and knowledge to help you overcome your biggest challenges. But then, when I don't know the answer, I can take advantage of this amazing network that I'm lucky to have created within the Corporate Warrior podcast and blog, and collaborate with experts to help you with your specific situation. So this really is a great opportunity to grow your business and achieve your goals by actually getting essentially tailored solutions for you. The membership also provides exclusive content on high-intensity training and business, like how to save money on exercise machines, how to scale your business, and how to instruct the perfect workout. There is a well-managed and troll-free community with some of the best in the business to provide support and help you get results. Every month, I provide a live webinar with a high-intensity training or business expert to focus on a specific topic, but also give you some Q&A opportunity as well. This is the best investment you can make in your strength training business today. Join the waiting list now on corporatewarrior.co/membership. Today's guest is high-intensity bodybuilder John Hart, who returns for a part 2. This was a really fun conversation. I got to geek out with John and get his opinion on a lot of the nuances in diet and high-intensity training. I had a whole list of questions that you guys submitted specifically around high-intensity training tactics and strategies in the context of optimizing body composition. And I use this opportunity to ask as many of those as possible. So, over the years, every time I get a question from one of you guys, it goes into a little Google sheet. And I had this list, it must have been of, 80 rows of just the most outrageous in some cases and hair-splitting questions you can possibly imagine. So, we I thought it was a great opportunity to talk to John about this because I just thought, he's perfectly placed to answer these questions. And so things like, the importance of time under load for muscle reactivation and failure, the potential problems with SuperSlow, optimal cadences, mistakes in high intensity training. So we do get into all this nitty gritty stuff. We do also talk about John's thoughts on a high protein diet and much, much more. For all of the show notes and links for this episode, please go to corporatewarrior.co/John-2. That's corporatewarrior.co/John-2. And for all episodes, please go to the usual place, corporatewarrior.co/podcast. That's corporatewarrior.co/podcast. I'm not sure why I'm repeating all of these days, but it just seems to be what I feel like doing. And don't forget to hang around till the end for your free gift from me. That is a Google Sheet to track your workouts and also an ebook with 20 transcripts free of charge. I used to actually sell that, but kind of quickly realized that it's much better as a giveaway for you guys. And that without further ado, I now give you the incredible John Hart. John, welcome back to Corporate Warrior.
Thank you, Lawrence. It's fantastic to be back.
How's it going?
It's going well. I'm doing very well, and in Southern California over here, we're enjoying some great weather as usual, and
beautiful.
Boy, training clients and online clients as well. It's been very good, very successful, and I've been enjoying the people. I really, really enjoy the people that I work with. That's really nice to know.
Yeah, it's pretty important in your field.
You have to be a people person. If you're not a people person, you belong in some other business. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So, as we were sort of talking beforehand, I'd very grateful, obviously, that you sent your books over my way, and I was flicking through some of those over the last few weeks.
Yes, and
definitely some of your strategies and philosophies, and definitely trigger some questions for me. And I do recommend. What I love about those books actually is you've been so honest and transparent, and you've literally gave every finite detail about your diet and your training. So, and I know that people are absolutely obsessed with the details in your case. So for anyone listening, I'm sure that John will leave his details into this, and I will also link those resources up, assuming they're available online for the people to peruse and consider buying, because I do think they're a great way to get a real inside view on exactly what you do to achieve optimal results for you. Anyways, so we spoke last time at the kind of tail end of the last conversation. We're talking about diet. You've always been a bit of a high carb advocate. And I was just curious, reading the books, you obviously dial up and down your calories depending on what you're trying to achieve. Start out really lean and then kind of dial them up slowly. Have you ever tested doing a higher protein approach before in your training career at all?
Yeah. Now, are you talking about just higher protein or higher protein and fat?
Well, I'd be interested in both. I asked higher protein because all the latest research at the moment that's coming out around protein consumption is that we should be getting at least 1.6 grams per kilogram for optimal gains. Albeit, in terms of response for hypertrophy, it plays a very minor role compared to genetics, obviously, and actual resistance training. Resistance training is like 80% of it, and then but I just wondered if the prevailing literature or the experts are kind of saying if you want optimal gains, you need to be consuming this, but it sounds like you're consuming a quite a bit less than 1.6 grams. I think for you is kind of around the 125, 150 gram, maybe.
Yes. Yes.
And obviously you weigh a fair bit more than that. So just be interesting if you've tested that.
Yes. Here's the interesting part about that, Lawrence, is that earlier on in my career, I'm 53 right now as we speak. Okay. And competitively, I've competed from 18 years old straight through until I was 52, right up until last year. And during that process, I've had, I'm just going to say it flat out. Okay. I'm a metabolic freak. I've definitely been tainted by my own great metabolism. And so my views on my own personal training and nutrition have been tainted by the fact that I'm saying it flat out. I never realized it until I witnessed other people compared to me, and then my own brother, who is identical to me with the eating. I mean, he can do the same exact thing and remain lean at all times. So I'm putting it right out there. So there's another genetic component considered right there as well. Metabolically speaking, that's the first part. I want to just put a preface out there that preclude to my answer is, I am admitting flat out that I know that I've been freakish a little bit with regards to I can get away with a lot as far as eating more carbohydrates. Now, having said that, have I ever experimented with dropping the carbs down lower and increasing the protein and or increasing the protein and the fats? Yes, in fact, I have. I wouldn't be a bodybuilder. I would think a competitive bodybuilder all these years if I had not at least tried that avenue, exhausted that avenue, worked that avenue, because it's just in the name of making gains, to be honest with you. And that's it. A lot of bodybuilders will tell you that they're willing to, eat dog crap if it meant that they're going to make gains. They'll choke down the most disgusting protein drinks imaginable, to make gains. And one of the things for me was diet-wise, I did, at various times, not just once, but multiple times, I did go and drop the carbs to, more of a insulin control level. I'm talking about just some simple greens in there, and the rest of my calories being mainly protein and fats in different combinations. As I said, I've tried both, just higher protein with low fat, low carbs. I've done high protein along with high fats as well. Now, when I say high protein, I'm talking about at least 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. So if I'm averaging around 200 pounds lean, then, we're talking about 300 grams of protein. Okay. So on average, okay, at times. And then I've also had it a little bit lower, around 225, which would be 1.125, right? 1.125. So in doing so, I can say that while I actually felt better at times having done that, and when I say it was just a feeling, how I looked, however, now that I'm just going purely by how I looked initially, of course, with the lack of carbs, there was an adjustment period that my liver had to go through to start switching fuels, right? So my body had to make an adjustment over the first couple of weeks. But as I went past those first couple of weeks, I literally can think clearer on a higher protein, lower carbohydrate diet. I feel better overall. I feel healthier. So far, I'm giving a bunch of feelings. Visually, though, on my body, maybe it has something to do with how I train. I don't know. But on training days specifically, it's evolved from the time that I wrote the books. I was 48, 49 in that age range. And in the last 4 or 5 years, it's shifted a little bit to where I've geared myself away from as many carbohydrates, proportionately speaking, within my diet, and then increasing the protein, yes. And more specifically, I'm realizing that the absorption of protein as we age, our enzymes, for most adults, are not as efficient as they were when we were in our 20s and our 30s. So I do use digestive enzymes now regularly, with just about every meal, and it's about the absorption of the protein that I do eat, because I started to observe certain things. This is what I've noticed. And by the way, over the years, is that older men, you always hear these jokes about old men with their farts and old men with their and their muscle mass just disintegrating, right? And I don't know so much if that's a factor of, well, it's definitely a factor of their training has become less intense in most of their cases. But then on top of that, the digestive issues, the farts, the gas that they, usually put down to just being old, I believe has a lot to do with undigested protein working its way through their system, whereas it used to get digested and absorbed. So my first earlier experiments using digestive enzymes came out very, very positive. I had great results as far as, digestive issues gone completely, gas practically gone, which is a miracle for bodybuilders. And
any favorite brand or favorite product?
Well, I'm not going to go and promote any of them. Product-wise, yes. I'm not going to promote anybody who doesn't, sponsor me, of course. So I'm not going to. They can, I'll put it up on social media and let them contact me. How's that sound? But I'm not all that altruistic. I like using HCl and pepsin to increase the hydrochloric acid as well. I might use a multi digestive enzyme. Generally, I stick with, though, the HCl and the pepsin mainly. And, every once in a while, if I know I'm having a bigger meal, I have access to the other enzymes as well that break down carbohydrates, fiber, and fats a little bit better as well. So I'm thinking, overall that enzyme-wise, our systems are generally not as efficient as we get older. So as time is passing, I'm seeing these little changes have had a very positive effect. And yes, in fact, one of the evolutions in my own personal diet and approach to eating is that for the most part right now, I do eat more protein than I've written about in those books, more along the lines of a, 35% protein intake now, as opposed to the 25% or so that I used to have. So it's definitely gone up, and I took those calories specifically out of the carbohydrates. The other thing that you'll find, how old are you, Lawrence?
Fatty.
Okay, so the other thing you'll find in the next 20 years is those carbohydrates. I do understand what most people have gone through. Again, I've been blessed metabolically and have had a freakish metabolism. So the changes that have occurred, I would put up mainly to the carbohydrate intake. I'm not saying that it's the devil. I am saying that there's just changes. So to control body fat levels, to control my health overall and my mental well-being as well. I think that there's way less peaks and valleys, of course, when you eat higher protein and as well higher fat. I see a lot of merit in something like a paleo type of diet now as I'm getting older. I do see a lot of merit in that. Yeah, I do. And I'm not.
Sorry to interrupt you, John, but I just want to clarify the exact your protein intake now. What's that in terms of grams per pound? Or if you think
I still go calorically. I still break things up calorically, as I wrote in the books. That's one of the consistent factors that I've used. And calorically speaking, I can give you a percentage that I'm very, because when I enter my foods and my macronutrients into my own programs that I'll use, it'll spit out a pie graph that'll show me, my percentages. And I generally use something like a MyFitnessPal or a CalorieKing.com. Either one of those are fine. They offer up the pie graph. That's what I really want out of it. And I can see the percentages that way. I don't much care what they say I should be eating. They try to help people by giving them.
They're terrible. They're terrible.
Yeah. But over the years, I think the number one factor becomes, and I just said this in a recent interview, it's how you feel. As you get older, it's not going to be for a lot of people, having massive muscle mass, but rather none of that will matter if you don't feel good.
Yeah.
So the number one thing has to be feeling good and feeling healthy. And I do recognize clearly that, higher insulin levels are definitely not going to be the way to go as you grow older. But so if you notice in all the books, everything that I wrote, when I was having higher carbohydrate intake, the calories were getting pretty low. And that in and of itself is going to, just by nature, it's not going to shoot those insulin levels way high. I was still able to go ahead and reduce body fat levels multiple times over the years. I've competed 17 times in the last 35 years. So, every other year on average. And I was able to go sub 5% every single time eating carbohydrates. So those things, if you control your calories, is it a grind? Yeah, it's a grind. You definitely have to control yourself. So that's my general answer.
Cool. No, that's good. Just going back on the apps, it's funny because every time I fill in, because I'm tracking, I'm doing a bit of a high protein experiment myself at the moment. And every time I plug in, what I'm eating for protein in my fitness pal, it's like, you're eating too much fat, too much protein. Right. And I'm like, but I've got a 6-pack. So how does that work?
Exactly. I think they may use a USDA guideline still, which is way out of date. I don't know what country they're out of, but it's way, way wrong, but go ahead.
Yeah. You talk about how you measure daily caloric maintenance levels with yourself and your clients in your books, and how you track a daily average. I'm just wondering, do you ever use things like the Catch-McCardle formula or any kind of online calculators? Do you think are useful for this type of thing? Like, why is it that you kind of default to this what would seem as being a more kind of like, I guess a different way of measuring it, but I always thought like the Catch-McCardle formula or some of these online calculators would be more accurate at measuring maintenance calories, but you do it more from look at the average, and if you're gaining weight, then drop it, and then if you're standing still, then that's your maintenance calories, which I guess perhaps is better for N=1, but maybe I've answered the question.
You just did. You just did.
I'm terrible at that.
One way is more accurate, and you're right. The formulas do work. However, it does come down to a communication between myself and the client. Okay, so when I communicate with the client, I realize that a lot of their answers in general, when we go and I say to them, I need you to track your food for the week. Now, whether I'm using the other formula or whether I'm using my basic way of doing it, in either case, I'm still dependent upon them coming up with what are they doing, okay? And in almost every one of their cases, as much as they say they're not on a diet right then and there, they're going on a diet. They know I'm watching them. They know. And here's the other thing, Lawrence. It's all based upon what they're doing in their recent history. So I believe there's a lot of variation no matter what formula that we use. This is just my belief that no matter what formula we use, it's all based upon their most recent history. So you can have somebody that comes to you and in the last 6 months, they've been generally humming along, metabolically speaking, on a lot of calories, and they've done a great job with their training and they've been active physically daily. And as a result, they require a lot of calories. In recent times, they may have cut down on their activity. And this whole formula that they're throwing out at me now has, many moving parts. So in order to determine the quickest way to get things under control, I'm involving myself in a lot of communication with them, and I want them to have an understanding. So I'm defaulting away from too technical of a formula that will still get a great result, but I'm actually showing them how the thinking is behind my approach. And when we do such things, it builds a trust factor between them and myself. So it's more that kind of a default. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. That makes sense.
So when I handle, the eating program of, I have something like 25 or 30 clients, in the gym, and then I have a bunch online. And when I have to handle all of these people, again, who I like very much, and I want them to understand, and I'm a teacher by nature, so you can tell by my answers. You ask me a simple question, I'm giving you 20 minutes of an answer. Yeah. So being a teacher by nature, I want to have them gain an understanding of where they're at. Look at all the moving parts. It's not as just simple as just throw me a diet. I can throw you a diet and it'll work for Lawrence, but it won't work for you, because you guys are coming from two different places. Even though you may be the same size, you may have the same lean muscle mass, same body fat percentage right now, all of that, it may not work because of your most recent history. So I'm going to go ahead and be, more analytical about, well, let's see what the recent history was, and let's both work on this. So I get them involved and interested because they have to go off on their own after a while. And that's the main part that I'm looking at,
Yeah, so that's a really important takeaway, I think, with any like online or distance coaching. You have to empower them to be able to continue after the relationship has ended.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, if they're not, because I find, because I do it a bit myself, and certainly will be in the Corporate Warrior membership, which is currently launching and opening start of May. And I find that if you try and help too much, I mean, it's very convenient because it's less work, but if you try and help too much, you're almost not helping as much as you could be long term. Yeah.
Creating a dependency. Yes, I do. Yes, I do, because that's creating a dependency.
Yes, so exactly. Yeah.
From a business standpoint, you do want people to come back willingly and wanting to learn more and to get more out of their interaction with you. However, there's a big difference between that and they feel that they must, or else they're just going to blow up like a tick and get fat. Yeah. So those things, I don't see any purpose in that. I've been way more successful teaching people, and it's really, really nice, by the way, to have really smart people. I have one lady who comes to mind. She's a scientist for JPL. It's one of the space programs here in Southern California. And I train her now for the last couple of years. And to have her tell me that I'm a great teacher, and to have her tell me she really enjoys learning from me, I was so humbled and blown away. I was That's like, awesome. I can't believe she's saying this to me, Miss PhD. I mean, it's amazing. So yeah. So I try and be a teacher. That's all. So I don't want to overburden anybody with, too many mathematics or too much. I keep it as simple as possible in that regard, and it gets results too. So that's the main thing.
That is the main thing. Right. So as you know, we had a lot of topics and questions submitted by listeners over the years, which I've kept in a little spreadsheet. And whenever I do an interview, I always look, scan these and think, would these be appropriate for this guest or not? And a number of those questions are some of the real kind of nitty gritty, high intensity training questions about all the nuances. And I think you're just the perfect person to ask these questions because you've got so much experience in this. So here we go. And some of them, might be a bit odd, but we're going to ask them and talk about them anyway. So first question is, how important, in your opinion, and actually I'm going to give some context on this one. So the question is, how important in your opinion is time under load for proper muscle failure and reactivation? Now, the reason that I think that where that question is coming from is, I think you get a lot of people out there, a lot of trainers, a lot of people even in the training sciences who don't really talk about time under load or time under tension. They talk about reps, right?
Right.
And in my head, I'm thinking, well, every time they do a rep, depending on the form, they can be unloading the muscle. So I think sometimes there's a distinct difference between the type of high intensity training we talk about in practice versus some of these more higher volume, multi-set approaches where they don't seem to care about tension. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So in that, I guess that's kind of the prefacing, the context for the question. How important do you think time under load is in general for, I guess the question is kind of saying proper muscular failure, so stimulation and I guess optimal gains?
Yes, I think it's important, of course. You don't want to avoid putting resistance up against the muscle. Okay, the objective, whether you're a bodybuilder or whether you're a fitness enthusiast, whether you're a corporate warrior, all of the we all come down to the same bottom line. If you're going to lift a weight or even do body weight exercise, you are going to have to put the muscle under tension. That's number one. The pace at which you do that, number one, number two, the pace at which you do that is going to be relative to the specific exercise. Okay, there are some exercises like a barbell curl that it's easy to avoid completely. Putting direct load on the muscle. You can literally do a set of barbell curls and get a pump in your forearm and in your shoulders and your neck and your lower back and get nothing in your bicep because you've avoided entirely training your biceps. And I know that sounds funny, but it's going to depend on the exercise itself. Okay. The time under load. So I'm just using that as an example of how people avoid hitting target muscles if they're trying to, isolate a muscle. However, the time under tension, I have found over the years, it's not as technically important as what certain groups make it out to be. I've written about it before. I'm a despiser of the SuperSlow technique. I absolutely don't believe in being super artificial about our movements with the weights. Okay, and any exercise, doing a chin up for that matter, being super artificial about it, meaning going hyper slow to the point where you're counting 10 seconds on the positive or 10 seconds on the negative. To me, that's way too slow. It's way unnatural. I'm speaking, of course, my opinion and anecdotally as well, that without a scientific reference in front of me, that doing more of a positive, 2-second positive, or concentric, and then a 3 or 4 second eccentric is just about fine. And if it's a second off either way, the world's not going to stop revolving, man. It's just not going to stop revolving.
This is the thing, because it's like, sorry, I'll cut you off, John. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. So the bottom line is the individual is the one who's going to determine, am I getting the hit on the muscles that I want to hit? Am I using proper speed to where I'm not letting momentum take over and I'm throwing a weight? I mean, that sucks. You can't be throwing weights, obviously, but you should be thinking in terms of putting more stress on the muscle and doing it without being artificially slow. How does that sound? That's my summary answer right there.
Yeah. I agree largely with that. And I think this is the problem, right? It's like, I don't believe there is any research or that I know of that compares, a super slow cadence versus, a faster cadence, over a long enough period to really say one is more effective than the other. I'm really not sure if that even exists. However, it certainly would seem to me that super slow is potentially less productive on a lot of exercises, for the reason that when I used to train at Keyser on MedX, I would deliberately take advantage of the super slow negative because it was like a rest from the exercise. But
that's right.
Right. And this is I know this, and I know a lot of people in high intensity training are like, well, yeah, that's why we don't do it.
Yep.
But it's totally true. Like you will, it's like people that try and chase the improvement in time under load. It's like if you're chasing that and cheating and doing the slowest negative you can to get that, that's kind of like not the objective,
Right.
And the people listening to this who don't understand this would be much better off, I believe, focused on, targeting muscular failure, and trying to get there and trying to do it as with the best form that they can without any cheating or anything. And then then the time under load and the performance is kind of a byproduct of that. And then you look at that and then you decide where you go from there, versus trying to deliberately like cheat form or have a very slow negative, for example, to try and expand that or lengthen that time under load as much as possible. It just doesn't make sense. But when I started out, that's what I did.
Right. Oh, you did. Wait, you did which one? The one you're saying right now, or you
so
did?
when I first, and I'm sure that when I first read Body by Science, and I'm sure Doug never intended this, but when you're new to high intensity training, you get so excited about increasing your time under load every session that becomes the objective. But that's not that important, obviously.
No.
And if you're just focused on that, you're missing the bigger picture.
Yes, I agree with everything you just said. The whole second half of everything you just said, you led into what your belief is. That's completely what I agree with right there. The main objective is taking the muscle to a point of, failing. Otherwise, not much is going to happen, or near failure at least. And doing it honestly. You have to be honest with yourself.
Yes.
Am I hitting the muscles that I want to hit? Am I doing the exercise properly in good form? There's enough information out there right now that, you could do a simple Google search on the word squat, for example, and you'll find, unlimited resources on how to squat properly from very good sources. You can do one on a pistol, how to do a pistol squat, right? And that's out there too. There's so many things. Chin-ups. I mean, there's so many variations. I mean, so many sources that are actually very good, and they show good form with video. And so, yeah, I agree with you that's the main thing, the main objective. It's not increasing time under load or time under tension. So I hope that answers the question for whoever asked that one. That's a good one though. It is. It doesn't matter, beginner, intermediate, or advanced. There are people who are advanced that need to hear that. They really do.
No, I like being able to just converse on that with you, because it's just. I think it's quite productive. It's quite useful for listeners. Certainly those, maybe people who've been doing this for a while, but certainly for beginners as well.
Yes.
This is a good segue into, because I wanted to ask you about deadlifts and squats. I haven't really done deadlifts and squats in high intensity training fashion for many years. I've done leg presses, and then more recently kind of single legged squats and stuff like that. Just curious, when I know you love, deadlifts, and don't you call them like Jesus Christ lifts or something like that?
Yes.
And squats as well. So, but I'm curious, because I must confess I haven't, as I said, practiced these movements for a while. So would you, when you're doing those types of lifts in this context, do you ever unload, or is it the same protocol as anything else? You're going one set to failure with tension on the muscles the whole way through?
Okay, that's a really great question. First of all, with regards to deadlifts, I at one point, just in my own mind, I changed the name to Jesus Christ lifts in my own speaking and in my own language, just because I just decided to give it it's a great productive exercise. I'm going to call it something that gives life as opposed to death. So that's my only technical. I'm having fun with the words. Okay, that's all that is. All right.
Makes sense.
And for all those, sanctimonious Christian haters out there, fine, go screw yourselves. You don't have to comment on that. You don't even have to pay attention to me on that. I'll call it deadlifts for the sake of what exercise I'm talking about. All right? How's that sound? So here we are, right? So here we are. Deadlifts are one of the exercises in which, and squats, by the way, that I don't use any high intensity techniques. I never have. I never. I mean, other than drop setting on a squat movement. Okay, if I'm using some good resistance, I may drop the weight and do some more reps with a lighter weight at some point to take it to the point of a little bit more of muscular failure. Other than that, no, they're too dangerous. You're loading your back, your spine. It is about form. When it comes to exercises like deadlifts, squats, free bar squats, Smith machine squats, doesn't matter either kind, your lower back must remain in a certain position and in a very safe position. That's number one. No one's going to live your life in your body but you. And no matter what I were to say, if it were to cause damage to your back, you still have to be the one that lives with it, and not me. So I'm going to say and default upon the edge of let's keep it safe. So squatting, free bar squatting with a Smith machine, squatting on any machine, and deadlifting as well. We don't want that lower back to round, to open up too much. We want it to stay nice and secure when we're squatting with a nice column, a spinal column in nice form, nice neutral spine, okay? So in order to do that, we can only take it so far. So taking it to the point of, one rep shy of failure, perhaps over the years, they're both big exercises. Okay. They're both such big exercises that generally you can crank big weights up off the floor or crank big weights in a squat. So if you have the structure to squat, that is, then in doing so, it's already going to be a big hit to your system. Okay. Technically speaking, it's already going to use a lot of energy. It's already going to make a big hit into your energy subsystems. So what we want for safety's sake is only to take it to the point of near positive failure or with a good spotter on squats. Yes, you could take it to the point to where that weight is going to get stuck if your spotter didn't help you up with it. Okay, that's about the only exception that I would make. Deadlifts, on the other hand, I don't believe in using any. I've heard some really wild things from a lot of guys over the years in how they try to make these things more intense, and I just don't believe it and believe in it. I think you should prioritize form above everything else. And the paradox, or might sound like I'm being a hypocrite in a way, because I'm basically saying you don't need high intensity things on those two exercises, but then why have them at all on any other ones, right? So there's a nice question for anybody who wants to ask. See where my mind goes, right? But those exercises in and of themselves are big hits. The protocol that I would use in order to make some good progress is more of an undulating pattern, almost a la powerlifting, undulating peaking techniques, where I take a 12-week period or a 15-week period, and within that 12 or 15-week period, there's going to be weekly microcycles, almost, where it's up, down, with an eye on increasing the weight over the course of 12 or 15 weeks. In the beginning, you're getting sort of a running start on those exercises. In the first 2 or 3 weeks, you're not necessarily using your max weights. You're not taking them to total failure. But as the weeks progress, you'll not only increase the weight, but you'll also get to the point where you'll smoke right past your best ever lifts in good form. And yes, by the same token, repetition-wise and time under tension-wise, I'm not talking about doing 20 plus repetitions here. I'm talking about doing, deadlifts are in the lower rep range of between 5 and 10, and then the squats are always within the rep range of 8 to 12 in that rep range, and that time under tension, respectively, as well, it'll adjust accordingly. A few more seconds of time under tension on the squats as opposed to the deadlift. The other thing, Lawrence, that I found out over the years is the other technique that I really enjoy as time has passed on the squats is being mindful of injury. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be injured, and I want to be healthy and strong and work all of the connective tissue as well as the muscle. I'll do things on a regular basis, like my heavier squat workout now will end up being pause squats, where I squat down and pause for 1,001 count before coming up. And wow, by virtue of doing that, it's less dynamic. It's still a major hit to the muscle. And no, you don't do 12 repetitions like that. You're doing 5 or 6, but the time under tension that you've just added by that 1,001 at the bottom is amazing, So I enjoy doing that. And yes, in fact, when I do that, I will use multiple sets. I won't take it to a single set to failure if I'm doing pause squats like that. So I do a higher intensity, higher repetition workout as well on squats, where, like I said, I may do a set of 12 and then drop the weight to take it up to 20 total repetitions or so, or 21 repetitions in that range. And I have my clients do the same with some good success. That's the main thing. So it's not just me. It's I see it getting results in other people as well. Deadlifts, man, that one over the years, consistently the same. I do not use slow techniques. I believe in getting that weight up off the floor. I do not reset at the bottom when the weight hits the floor. I think it's hard on the lower back to do such a thing. I think you should take a little bit of a hit on the floor on those rubber mats. Feel free to, I hesitate to use the word bounce the weight, but being a little bit more dynamic. I've never, ever in 35 years injured myself or seen anybody that I've trained injure themselves using that technique. So in deadlifts, they've been more dynamic as long as they know the proper form. You have to have proper form. I'm going to be doing a video on that soon as well on my YouTube channel, by the way. So yes, that's coming. So very good question.
Thanks. Could you, that's excellent. Could you just elaborate though on whether you unload at all in those exercises? So I'm just don't fully understand. So in the deadlift, you will drop the bar at the bottom and then start. So you're almost doing like one rep at a time and unloading for a few seconds. So you're not, I'm assuming that you're not, because like you say, you're not kind of doing these in a high intensity training fashion. You're not kind of keeping tension on the muscles during the entire set for these two exercises. Same with the squat at the top.
Okay, I misunderstood the question. I took it as, do you ever unload over the course of time? Which, when you do any sort of a pattern over 12 or 15 weeks, there is by nature a unloading at certain points in that cycle. Near the beginning, it's a lighter load.
Oh, it's semantics.
Yes. So, but to answer your question, so I hope the listeners understand that that's what I was talking about. But to answer your question, what I mean is I do not unload when I hit I am using more of a constant tension on those deadlifts. I'm tapping the floor and coming right back up.
Got it.
I'm not resetting. When I said reset, that's what I meant when you were saying unload. So your word unload, my word is reset. I don't reset. I do not unload. Once I start that deadlift, I am starting it and I'm being dynamic about it, a little explosive about it. I'm keeping tension on the muscle as much as possible while coming up in a quicker fashion than putting it down. But again, the form is very, very good. So no, I do not unload during the course of a set. I do not teach people to do that either. Some people say that's safer to do it and it'll keep the weights a little bit lighter. That's fine. But in my experience, that's not something that I've done over the years. I've been very safe about it in the form that I use and have taught others to use as well. So they're more dynamic about it. They tap the floor, they come up. They tap, they come up. They don't stop, unload, reset, and then go again. To me, those repetitions are very hard on an exhausting lower back. As time goes by, those seconds tick away. That lower back, that one repetition where that lower back is rounding on its way back up, that's the dangerous one right there. And that's not going to be early in the set. It's going to be near the end of that set. So I don't even want to. So I don't do any grinders either. Okay, grinders are where you're grinding that weight up by the millimeter. No, negative. No grinders. When I'm pulling that weight up, and my clients as well. It's in very good form, but we keep that weight moving on the way up. We want that lower back to stay in a nice little arch position and, very, very good. Neutral neck position as well. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah. And what about the squat? When you come up to the top, obviously when you've got a barbell on your back, you kind of loaded the whole time in a way. But when you come up to the top of the squat, are you locking out your knees or are you keeping a slight bend and then as soon as you get to the top, reversing that direction immediately back into the squat so as to be loaded the whole time? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay. Within the two workouts that I described to you just now, one of them being one where I favor doing pause repetitions at the bottom. In that particular workout, I come up and for a moment, very quick moment, I do lock my knee for a moment. I do come up to full height and I go right back down again for just a moment. I'm not one to, I know how the human body, tries to avoid uncomfortability. And I see all the common spots that clients tend to stop, try to get rest, try to recover a second of rest. And in my mind, once I'm on attack mode, when I'm starting to do my set, I want to get that muscle to the end. So I do come up on those pause squats all the way while I'm pausing for 1,001 at the bottom. So the tension comes off the muscle briefly. And I mean half a second, very briefly. I'm right back down again. The other workout that I do where I'm doing higher repetitions, I do not hit the top at all. I come up about 80% of the way, and I'm right back down again. And that is, yeah. It's brutal, man. It's brutal. But the weights are a little bit lighter, and that one I do for higher repetitions. I enjoy that. You got to enjoy what you're doing, man. I think I've said this before. You really have to enjoy it. So you can use all the technical things that you want, but if you hate working with numbers and being technical, then you're going to hate working out. If you're using those techniques, so you got to kind of alter it to your personality. That's why I don't argue with people. I think it's fantastic the way that you would do something, the way that somebody else would do it, and even the way that I do it, and that we may be doing it 3 different ways. However, as long as 5 years from now, I can talk to you and say, look, my friend, are you still working out? And you say, yeah, man, I'm digging these workouts. I'm going to say to you, fantastic, fan-freaking-tastic, man. And me too. And this is what I'm doing, And so, that's got to be down the line. The ultimate is that within the framework of your own, knowing your personality as well, I think there has to be a little bit of an adjustment for that. So I do one workout that's constant tension. And then I do one workout that has about a split second break near the top. And I know the people that are very technical are going to say to me, well, the moment you're getting near the top, that muscle's already getting a break. Yeah, I know. I'm still playing with it. Talk to me in a couple of years. I might be saying something different, So yeah.
Splitting hairs at this point, but I'm interested all the same. And another one of the questions that I had here on the subject of cadence and time under load and stuff. In your opinion, do you think there is I know it must vary massively between exercises, but have you found that there's a more effective cadence for time under load versus another in general, or on specific exercises?
It depends, of course, on the range, right? Some movements you have a lot more movement to it than other ones, right? If you're going to do a calf raise, for example, it's a short movement. You'd have to really minimize that. You really have to micro count on a calf raise. I don't want to get lost in my own thoughts here, but the answer is, in general, I think of a 4-1-2, with 4 being the concentric and 1 being the static hold if there is any sort of a peak contraction to the exercise, and then 2 seconds being the concentric, the lifting of the weight. I think that's appropriate on most exercises. Appropriate.
You mean the lowering, right, on the concentric? You said lifting.
The concentric is the 4 number. Yeah, the lowering.
Oh, so I'm thinking eccentric. So eccentric would be the 2.
Oh, no, I apologize. The eccentric is the lowering. Yes, the concentric is the positive. So the number 4, I end up taking as the eccentric. So I do lower weights a little bit more under control, a little slower than I do on the positive, and that's been originally it was more out of just being told to do that when I first started exercising over the years, from, the Arthur Jones, the Mike Mensers, the whole Nautilus. And then over time, I've come to default on it as being factually better for me individually, simply because I feel safer doing that. I'm not trying to get a rest, but I just feel safer lowering the weights under control and raising them a little bit more explosively with a 2-second positive or concentric, and lowering them slower with a 3 or 4 second eccentric. So those are the general numbers that I use. But I'm like you in the way of, I'm not going to sit there counting second for second anymore. It's so boring. It's so beyond boring to use that specific number, time under tension. For beginners, I think it's fantastic. They have to, you have to get an idea of what you're doing. But then once you've grown out of that, I was, as I said, I was trained by Mike Menser, when I was, in the 1990s, early 90s, and we were good friends and everything. And he never sat there counting seconds on exercises that I was using. It was make a concerted effort, to work the muscle, make a concerted effort to eliminate momentum. Those were the goals, and take that muscle to failure, or multiple muscles to failure if it was a nice compound movement. So that was the goal. And I always took that literally. And, to this day, that's what I teach as well. And, it does get back to, understanding that you're not using momentum, and then also taking it to failure. And then lastly, man, you better be having fun with what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some really good principles. I love a lot of the stuff that Mike Mentor wrote and said. I've been, so more recently as my training's evolved, I've really embraced the smooth turnarounds. And I think this is something I really probably learned from Drew Bay and Simon Shawcross. And that is like, for instance, in a leg press, feeling like, but when you contract, like really feeling the bottom of your feet, let's say you're wearing a pair of shoes, not all people wear shoes in their leg press,
right?
Where you feel the bottom of your shoe, and then you feel the plate as you build up that tension on that positive contraction, and
yes.
and then you're, so that if the person were to hit the stopwatch to say start, they actually wouldn't see that plate move for a good 2 to 3 seconds because you're building up tension. And I've started implementing that in all of my exercises so that my turnarounds at the start and at the end are as perfect as I can make them. And I'm doing that because, one, I think it's kind of fun to kind of pursue mastery. But also I feel it's safer, and I just feel it's more productive. So long as I don't feel like I'm cheating, which I don't, because it's actually really hard to have smooth turnarounds, especially when you're coming out of the gate, like on a leg press at the bottom, or in a chest press. Usually the strength curve is the hardest at some of those points. So actually the smooth turnaround there is really hard. So I just wondered, is that something that you've played around with, or do you use that at all?
Well, that's exactly what I meant. No. It's exactly what I meant about, when I said that I use pauses on my squats, for example. Okay. I definitely use techniques like that on a regular basis. When I do a pause at the bottom of a squat, I'm all about getting a proper turnaround. You just used the word mastery. There's nothing more empowering, and oh man, it's amazing to be able to do a squat with a decent weight on you, and you take it down and literally come to a stop, and every muscle that you need to drive out of the bottom comes right out of that turnaround, and you're driving out smoothly with excellent form, not bending over. Oh man, when you're on that leg press and you use that smooth, beautiful turnaround, oh man, and what a way to think about it, from your feet to the force plate. I mean, that's just, and that's just what it's all about. If you can do those things, and do I think you should train like that all the time? I think it's a great way to connect and to master the movement. Now, when you do something a little bit more with I don't want to use the word rebound. They call them rebound, right? Rebound squats, rebound leg press, rebound. When you use a little bit more of an explosive movement coming out of the bottom, once you've trained yourself to connect and to master the movement as you've just described, then you don't get silly about it. Even when you do get a little explosive, it's almost as if it's ingrained in you. It's hammered into your psyche, your subconscious, and the connection with those muscles, that it's much better than it would have ever been if you had not had that experience. So I agree. The turnarounds are valuable. They're training yourself to master that movement, coming around on the turnaround on every single exercise, every one of them. I don't mean just one or two of them. I've seen it on people doing, a pull down, a chin up, the same thing, rebounding out of the bottom as opposed to, mastering it and pulling with the muscles that you need to pull on a smooth, beautiful turnaround. Same thing on the chest press, same thing. You want to talk about avoiding injuries, that's the way to do it. You're going to have longevity, my friend Lawrence. We will be talking 30 years from now, and you will have longevity in your joints. The joints should not get destroyed, by the way. I don't I don't agree with or even buy into or accept the premise that, as we get older, those joints are going to get destroyed. I don't believe that at all. That has to do with, the muscles pulling weird on the joint. It's not set up correctly, and destroying it simply by doing, rebound type exercises way too much on too many of those joints, and they cannot take it when they're in that position. So it wears them out over time otherwise. So, but besides that, they should not wear out. They should have integrity. They should be stronger because of what you're doing.
No, I completely agree. Is there anything you do when you train that is very helpful or effective, which you don't see very much in high intensity training community, or you feel is neglected?
Yeah, I laugh. I laugh a lot. I've learned to, I'm not joking at all. I've learned to joke around with my training partner. I've learned to joke around with myself. I've learned to, get the scowl off my face. I don't grind my teeth up that way. I've broken teeth before.
Wow.
Training. Yeah. And I hate wearing mouthpieces. So I generally don't do that anymore. I don't grind my teeth anymore when I'm training. And yeah, as serious as I can be, at the same time, I want to, have a good time doing what I'm doing. So it keeps me very interested long term, and I'm well aware of the time of the workout. That's a factor of intensity. If you're doing a workout in the course of, here's a great question no one asked. What about how long a workout should be? And the overall time of that workout, any given workout. Well, relative to the workouts that you've been doing recently of the same nature, then you should always know how long that workout is taking you, approximately within a minute or two, because the longer you go, the lower the intensity factor becomes.
Yep.
Now, I'm not talking about exhausting your cardiovascular system. I don't want to do that, but rather, so I don't like the super rush factor workouts a la Arthur Jones from way back. I think they have a place and they have a time, but for the majority of my year and my clients' years, we don't fly between every single exercise. And, although there's a great improvement to the cardiovascular system that way as well, I just believe that if you're sucking wind, it's going to be very hard for your muscles to contract between, and to recover between each exercise. So I'm just aware of the amount of time that I'm taking. So if I'm joking around, laughing around in the gym and all that stuff, or in my garage, I have my training partner Marvin these days, and we have a good time. And my wife, she'll hear us out in our garage, in my garage, at 4 a.m. We'll be out here training, and we'll leave that door open, and she'll hear me in the house in the middle of the night training, just laughing it up.
You still train really, really early in the morning, don't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's the best.
So weird.
It's the best.
I can't do that. Like I do. Sometimes I'll train early, but early to me is like, 7 a.m. And I'll do it only because I sometimes train my girlfriend. But like, I just can't bring it at that time like I can maybe mid-morning or afternoon.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how you do that.
It takes a little getting used to. I think it's up to the individual. I operate best when my thinking is not clouded at all with what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about what the rest of my day is going to be like. I'm just focusing on just let's train. And I like to have that free time in my mind. And it's really kind of a playground thing for me. So as serious as you all see, hey, look, as serious as you all see in my books and in the pictures, the videos of me, and I look all serious and all that stuff. The truth of the matter is I have way more outtakes coming out on my YouTube channel that are just, I had to tell my kids to stop deleting them as being bad videos, right? I said, they're hysterical, just let them go, man. I'm going to keep on putting outtake videos up because they're just funny,
Love it.
And and so you have to, early morning, she'll hear us out here, because it's really quiet, and she'll hear us out in the garage, not just lifting weights, but she'll hear us laughing and joking around. And that's just part of it, man. I think, bring some good chemicals get released with that as well. You know what I mean?
I do. before we wrap up, John, I really want to hammer something home for perhaps those that may be listening to the podcast for the first time or are listening to you talk for the first time, because I know the answer to this, but I want you to reiterate it. When you were in the best shape of your life, maybe that's now, or I'm thinking, Mr. America, how often were you training per week and for how long?
Yes, very good one. I averaged, and it is during the Mr. America in 2013 or so. I believe I was in my peak of shape, and 2013, 2014 in that range, and I was training twice every 8 days or so, and I say or so because. If I have to, I'll take an extra day off. If it's necessary, I'll take that extra day off to feel fully recovered. So twice every 8 days or so. And then the workouts themselves with a lot of warm-ups. I have to do, again, it's early in the morning like we just discussed, right? Yeah. So I'm not warmed up. I'm out of bed, and within an hour I'm training. So we're looking at anywhere from 25 to 35 minute workouts. Yeah, 25 to 35 minute workouts. And that's just, like I said, twice every 8 days. Today, I have found that I still work out with that same frequency, same amount of time for the workouts. What ends up happening is whereas 10 years ago, I'd go balls to the walls every single workout, nearly year round, and get great results and feel fine doing it. Now it's one of those things where, boy, I have to purposely schedule in some not to failure workouts, let's call it, just like Dr. Darden used to write about, not to failure workouts. I would do that every third or fourth workout, not to failure. And so that's what it's evolving or has evolved into right now. But yes, that's a very good question. I hope the listeners are gathering that's no joke. It's not made up. And it's, you can be world class training, 2 times every 8 days. I was not just Mr. America. I became a WNBF natural pro bodybuilder in the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation. I went up as high as 6th place in the World Championships. So if I thought there was a better way of training, I would have done it.
No, I love that. And yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of bring that point home and underscore that, because you look unbelievable. And it's like,
Thank you.
It's just another really powerful anecdote about the importance and the value in training hard, brief, and infrequent.
Yes. Yes.
Which are obviously the words of, I think, either Mike's or Arthur's words.
Yes.
And twice every 8 days, guys, for 25 to 35 minutes. That's all it takes if you're doing this right for complete health, I would say. Maybe a little bit of frequent movement throughout the day doesn't hurt. That's my feeling.
Let me add a little bit to that.
Sure.
That not only at my peak, not only right now, but I've been training that way with slight variations. Okay, I've been doing it like that for the last 27 years. So when people say, "Oh, you trained with high volume at one point or another," yeah, I had a brief, couple of year period in there. After I started in the very beginning with high intensity training, I took a brief period around year number 4, 5, and 6, around there, that I did use higher volume training and got, fractional results. And then I went back to what I know is better. And I've been doing that for the next 27 years. So that's exactly how it's gone down. So this is not something that I do just for maintenance. I'm after progress and gains, So yeah.
I appreciate you adding that in, because it just does, when someone says to me, or I see the question, "Oh, but did you get your gains doing high volume and then you now maintain with high intensity training?" It just that statement doesn't make any sense to me. When you understand like how how to stimulate muscles and how they then improve and grow, it just doesn't. I mean, obviously, there's still a lot we don't know, but for what we do know, that statement just doesn't make any sense to me when you think of what you're trying to achieve with high intensity training versus traditional training. And you hear it, like I remember seeing on Jay Vincent's YouTube channel. Are you familiar with Jay, John?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So obviously Jay looks incredible, and he gets it all the time, and those sorts of questions. And what I love about Jay is he's like, because he's so honest. He's like, no, guys, I'm a genetic freak. Like,
That's right.
I look like this because I have very, very good genetics. You will probably not be able to look like, and I love that because he's just saying it like it is, and he's saying like it's not the training protocol. I'm just quoting Skylar now. It's the biology that's a limiting factor. But both protocols are likely to get very similar results. Maybe the high intensity training is going to get better results because it's more intelligent. And the high intensity training is likely to be far more sustainable because it's not putting all the I guess
wear and tear.
Yeah,
the wear and tear on your joints. Yeah.
That's it. The wear and tear. Those are the words I'm looking for. Yeah. So I just want to because I really want, I guess, as many people to try this out as possible, and move away from what are quite often unsustainable, ineffective methods of exercise to trying something like high intensity training. So I appreciate you.
Let me in under 1 minute I can add to that.
Yeah,
under 1 minute. I know I can talk for hours here, but look, and I know we're wrapping, but look, let me just say this to all the listeners as well. It's very, very important that you understand, okay, that if you take the two different workout protocols, the higher volume, 6 days a week, hour and a half to 2 hour workouts versus, let's say one workout every 5 days, okay, for even 40 minutes, okay? The difference in the time consumption alone means
huge.
You can actually have a life outside of the gym. You can go, as Mike used to say to me, Mike Menser, he used to say, go read a book. Go read a few books, go learn a new language. How about start a new business? How about, any one of those things? So people ask me all the time, how could I have my hands in so many different things besides training people in the gym? I also, have online clients and I've written books. I write new books. I handle heavy duty consultations for Joanne. I do YouTube videos, all of those things. How do you do all of those things and manage the time with that? Well, it's because I don't train 6 days a week. I don't have to make that allowance for it every single day of my life. So you too can do the same. And yes, Jay Vincent's correct. He's a genetic freak. Yes, there's a certain amount of genetics that I have that said bodybuilder right from the beginning. There's a certain amount of genetics I've already pointed out at the beginning of this interview that metabolically speaking, I'm quick to admit it. And things I can get away with my eating. However, having said all of that, you can still be 10 times better than you are today by choosing the right training protocol and still be injury-free and have longevity and still make progress over the long haul if you just go down the right road. And if you choose to go down a high volume road, you're inviting a lot of problems down that road. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I appreciate you ending on that note, John. What's the best way for people to find out more about you?
My website.
Yeah.
I have a website. It's MrAmericaHeart.com, and that's HEART. So it's MR and then America, Heart, HEART.com. That's the website. All of my social media links are right there on the first page, down at the bottom of the page, and that includes Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as well as the YouTube channel where I'm posting up videos regularly, weekly. I'm in that for the long term as well. I really, really enjoy doing that. So that's my chance to help just on a subject of the day, just to instruct, just to teach, sometimes I have guests coming in with me, and sometimes I'm just by myself, just teaching and talking. And it's a lot of fun. And that's, they can find that link through my website as well. So that's it. And then I have my books that I've written. You mentioned the two that you have are Physique 101, as well as Mr. America Shape Up Series. Both books are available through my website. There's in the shop on my website. They can do downloads through that as well. It's available in a download or in paperback. And then I have a third book coming out in the fall. We'll see. It's coming up soon now, so I'm working on it diligently right now. So it's a little bit different. I don't want to toss it out there just yet, but keep your eyes open on my social media, and you'll see it coming soon. So I have a third one about to be dropped this fall.
Nice, sounds good. Yeah. And all of that, all those links, the John's website, everything will be listed in the show notes and blog post. And you can find that, and that will be on corporatewarrior.co/John-2. I'm going to say -2 just to be safe, because I think I've already got a /John.
Yes.
And for the rest of the podcast episodes, please go to corporatewarrior.co/podcast. And until next time, guys, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for having me too.
I hope you enjoyed that. Before you head off, head on over to corporatewarrior.co/ebook to get your free high-intensity training Google Sheet to track your training progress. And get my ebook with 20 interview transcripts with some of my top guests, including Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, and Bill Day Simone, on how to optimize muscle gain, fat loss, and overall health in an efficient, effective, and sustainable way. Head on over to corporatewarrior.co/ebook now and enter your email address for instant access. This podcast is brought to you by Vital Exercise, a one-of-a-kind personal training facility in the UK, owned and run by that geezer and world-class personal trainer Ted Harrison. For over 30 years, Ted has been very successful in helping people achieve great results. And if you've seen the blog post for his episodes on this podcast, you will see that he walks the walk. And at 57, he's muscular and lean and can be seen on Facebook doing his best Daniel Craig impression, emerging from the sea in the tiniest trunks you've ever seen. Ted and I talk all the time. Since our very first meeting, when Ted put me through an amazing workout, he's become a great friend and one of my trusted health and fitness counsel. Operating from a high-intensity training base, Ted uses an eclectic mix of training styles to optimize results for his clients. He's a hot property, and people travel from all over the UK to train with him. To book a free consultation, either at his facility in Essex in the UK, or to find out more about his virtual coaching, which includes personalized training, nutritional guidance, and support, please go to corporatewarrior.co/Ted, where you can fill in a contact form or phone Ted directly. That's corporatewarrior.co/Ted.